these questions. It's one word. What harm can it do?
Welcome to the official, unofficial Sea of Thieves podcast, a podcast dedicated to Sea of Thieves and other rare games. With the launch of Season 11, we decided to completely ignore that and change the subject entirely, just so we could slot in our all-time favourite guest. No prizes for guessing who this is, though. To cut the intro short, and to maximise our time with him, I would like to introduce the creator and my wonderful co-host first of all.
Well, hello, it's me, it's Captain Blubber. I'm the creator. Makes me feel like I'm God. Just better because I create the podcast, so I'm better than God. But yeah, happy to be here. I'm happy to take a back seat as well because I'm really tired. So I'm happy you're doing the hosting today.
Fair enough. At least we know why I'm the host this time. And of course, the man of the hour and the person you've been waiting for.
I'm Mike Chapman. Hopefully everyone in the community has heard my name before. I'm creative director on the wonderful pirate game that is Sea of Thieves.
It's fantastic to have you back. As you can see, I'm very excited, and I'm sure Blubber is as well. And we won't go too harsh on you. That's a lie. The first few questions are awful.
Do it.
But yeah, so we had you on the podcast, and I believe it was August 2022. That's when it released anyway. So it's been a little while. Of course, I managed to fight off several others to have a chat with you at SOTFest. I actually remember you. I'll tell Blubber this now. I remember Mike coming in. I think you turned up about the same time as Joe. And you were just immediately mobbed at the door, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah, it was such a change. I mean, the first Sea of Thieves Fest, it was kind of like that. But you could definitely feel the extra people in last year's SOTFest. But honestly, when you're speaking to people and everyone's so enthusiastic and passionate about the game, I felt like I was at SOTFest for an hour at most. I was there for several hours. It just flies by when you're speaking to so many people. So yeah, I had a lot of people saying, "Oh, you looked really busy. There was a massive queue," and I don't see the queue. You're just speaking to the person in front of you.
Apart from when you rolled your eyes when you recognised me at the front of the queue.
I'm pretty sure I didn't. I'm sure I didn't. I'm sure I was happy to see you. Right?
No, I'm just winding you up, Mike. Yeah, I do remember there was an impromptu queue at one point as well, which I think was better than the mob of people that just surrounded you when you came in the door. And it was the same for Joe as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, the only downside was there was if you remember to the right, there was those stalls that had the merch. I never got to see those. And then finally at the end of the day, what's his name now? The creator that created Crooks Hollow in Lego. I was able to see it the moment before it was broken down. I almost missed so much of the day, but it was great. It was like looking forward to the next one already.
This year we're going to have your allocated merch time so you can go shopping, and we'll get some security for you as well. So you've got an hour to yourself then. No. Let's not put any process around it. I'm just going to turn up and speak to people. Keep it simple. Okay, that's good. So, so obviously... sorry, go ahead, Blubber.
Yeah, can I have a technical thing? Because Mike is a little bit echoey. I can't remember if it was last time the same. So, I don't know if you hear it as well, Ray.
Hang on.
How about now?
Ooh,
that's nice.
Way better.
So... Yeah, so for some reason, and I checked this yesterday knowing we had the podcast today, Teams has reset my audio settings, so it's not using this mic. That's really annoying.
Yeah. All right. Oh, I'm happy. I'm so happy I asked.
It's okay.
Well
people clicked away by now, so like, no, I can't deal with this audio. But they don't know the pressure.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that it's Logitech Brio. Yeah, the mic's not great.
That's Teams for you, because I plugged in my mic and just decided it didn't want to use the camera anymore. So yeah, I had to reset the whole PC.
Yeah, we got to deal with it.
Oh, you're so much sexier, Mike.
It's quite. Thank you. It's a really good mic. Yeah, it's great. That's from the. We got this all sent out to us during the pandemic, so we could record the official podcast at home. But yeah, the quality is really good. Yeah, the other one.
The second best one. Is that what we're
Second
saying?
best. Of course, yeah, of course.
Better, but less frequent.
Oh, third best, right? You have the podcast.
Yeah.
Of course.
And don't forget Davrams as well. So yeah.
Yes. There's a few on the field for sure.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's crack on.
So last time we did a few sort of icebreaker questions just to get you warmed up. And these won't be Sea of Thieves questions per se, but it's sort of to get to know you a bit more outside of Sea of Thieves.
Nice.
So if you weren't working on Sea of Thieves, what potential future game would you like to work on? So it could be one that we know about, one that's not been created yet, or, you know, a remake, something like that.
Give me, am I at Rare or am I anywhere?
Should we say you're anywhere, just to to not pigeonhole you so much?
I would love to work, and this is absolute pipe dream because it probably couldn't happen because different culture, different country, different language. But I would love to work on a Legend of Zelda game.
Ooh,
on Nintendo.
Have you played Tears of the Kingdom?
I have. I enjoyed it so much.
Better than Breath of the Wild?
That's a tough question. I loved Breath of the Wild. I don't. You'd have to ask me. I'd have a different answer each day. I would say yes. I think I enjoyed it. On the whole, I enjoyed it more than Breath of the Wild, I think.
What is it that you would add to the Zelda team then? What expertise would you bring?
I'm quite surprised that Nintendo haven't dabbled more in multiplayer experiences with Zelda. I know there was Four Swords and link your old GBAs together to have a multiplayer Zelda experience, but I think what I often find when played a lot of Breath of the Wild, played a lot of Tears of the Kingdom, is it's kind of nice how solitary and lonely it is to kind of be in that world on your own. I just love to be there with friends and be able to share that experience. I often find when something amazing happens in the game, I'm reaching out to my wife in the room going, how cool is this? It's like this need to share this epic adventure that you're going on. And the fact that you can't do that with being in the world with other people, it's I think it's a real opportunity.
Incredible. Now, here's a question for you. I want a one-word answer or one.
Whoa,
no extrapolation, should I say? Are you team Ocarina of Time or team Majora's Mask?
Ocarina of Time.
I'll give it to you.
I love Majora's Mask, but nothing will ever capture the feeling of playing Ocarina for the first time.
Oh, fair enough. I won't argue with you on that one because it's like choosing between children, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I love Majora's Mask. It's the cool dark twist, but yeah, Ocarina's great.
Blubber, what about you?
Majora's Mask, obviously. Yeah, it's my third favorite game of all time.
Connoisseur's choice, Majora's Mask.
Yeah, I'm Majora's Mask as well, despite playing it second. So I just like how creepy it is, even though Ocarina of Time is creepy as well. But you know,
it is very creepy. Yeah, that face in the moon is burnt into my mind.
It is glorious, isn't it? The old N64 version. That's the best one.
It's great. Well, it starts right from the start, right? That kind of moment in the forest at the start with Epona going. It's really dark and creepy right from the off.
God, adding that to my backlog to replay. But yeah, moving on. Next question. If you had to choose one Rare game to remake, what would it be and what would you change about it?
Ooh. Banjo-Kazooie.
Ooh.
Of Banjo-Kazooie. Probably, it is my favourite Rare game, other than Sea of Thieves. I think the quality I love about Banjo-Kazooie, and it always stands out when I replay it, which I do, once every couple of years, is when you contrast it to other 3D platformers. If you contrast Banjo-Kazooie to Mario 64, which is the one it typically gets compared to because it was on the same platform, I think there's a sense of adventure about Banjo-Kazooie, and you've got almost these not quite point and click, but you've got the more of the puzzle element, solving problems, which are typically solving dramas in the world, making the inhabitants of the Banjo-Kazooie worlds like like solving their problems. They're just that the adventuring aspects I love rather than just the pure mechanical platforming, which Banjo does really well. But I think remaking Banjo to really add more of that adventuring side would be interesting, because that's the bit I value the most.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't really know what to add to that, because I think you nailed it. I think most people would choose Banjo if they were to remake a Rare game. Blubber shaking his head.
It's already perfect. Like
it is perfect. It is perfect. I think less of a remake, but could you? What would be the iteration on the formula? And I think it would be keeping everything that was great about Banjo-Kazooie, which is all of it, but they're the more of the adventuring aspects.
I will say, as someone who played it recently for the first time, it's not because I'm like really young or something. I just didn't have N64 as a kid. It was amazing, and I've still got a little bit to finish, but that game has aged incredibly. So yeah, I think I agree with Blubber there that, you know, does it really need a remake? But you know, that's a different debate, isn't it?
I'd say it doesn't, but there you go.
Maybe
if anything was possible.
I would say nicer graphics, but the textures and stuff and the models just look really good still.
Yeah, they held up really well.
They're charming, aren't they?
I think that's part of its charm. Just how, I mean, it's such a rich experience compared to other 3D platformers at the time. The music, the sound effects, the characters, the writing. Yeah, it's great. It's a great game. It's a pleasure to be part of the same company.
Okay. So this one's a bit more of a broad question. What made you decide to work in the game industry?
Well, I played games from a very early age, and I might have told this story before, but I didn't really know that the role of a game designer exists. I knew that from a young age. The first thing I wanted to be was, well, essentially to work for the Walt Disney Company. I always wanted to be a Walt Disney Imagineer. I had a relative who had a kind of book on Imagineering and knew about Imagineering, and I just thought it was a dream job. You know, about the age of 9, 10, that's kind of what I wanted to do. And then once I realized that, probably early teens, like the idea of moving countries and all of that felt quite daunting and probably quite hard to do. And then kind of learning, like playing games and learning that you could make your own levels and make your own games and you could do it as a career. I was like, well, it's kind of the same thing, right? You're creating experiences and crafting emotions. There's a parallel there. So yeah, right from a young age, I would say. Started from a passion for just playing games and recognizing what aspects of games touched me.
So really, having Legend of Monkey Island and Pirate's Life come to Sea of Thieves is a bit of a dream come true, you'd say.
Oh, I still can't believe that we did it. I think both Pirates of the Caribbean, well, in many ways, and I definitely told this story in some of the Pirates Life interviews, which is I remember riding the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, 7, 8 years old, and just thinking, whatever this is what I want to do. That's where that kind of obsession with Disney began. And playing Legend of Monkey Island around that time as well. So, and both of those things being powerful inspirations for Sea of Thieves anyway, and so many fans on the team. So the idea of creating a story, weaving it into our lore, and having both of those IPs in our game is, I can't honestly, even to this day, I can't believe we had the opportunity to do that.
That's great to hear. Very jealous of that sort of dream come true moment. And jealous isn't the right word, but it's a fantastic sort of thing to see. That and it showed in both projects that the team was very passionate, not just yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it at the time, right? And I think we all knew it at the time that we've got to do our best work, or whatever the best work was at that point in terms of everything we knew, putting that experience to the test. The moment there was this opportunity initially with Pirates of the Caribbean to do something original and create an original story in the Sea of Thieves and powerfully weave the lore together, that was like, with that door is opening, we have got to open that door and run through it and give it our all. And that was certainly the energy I tried to bring to it.
Incredible. Quick question, actually, off of that one. Seen some debate about this online. I'm going off script, sorry, Blubber. But is the story in A Pirate's Life, is that canon to Pirates of the Caribbean now? Was that just not a thing that's really discussed when you made the crossover?
I think you get different answers depending on which of the teams at Disney you ask. Officially, I would say no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that would make sense, right? If Jerry Bruckheimer and co were making a Pirates of the Caribbean 6, they're not going to be thinking, oh, we can't do that because we might step on the shoes of the canon we've established in that little crossover that Sea of Thieves did. I think they are like two separate worlds.
So Captain Flameheart will not be in Pirates of the Caribbean 6, is that what you're saying?
What I will say is, did we fantasize about that? And when we started this relationship, almost the sky was the limit. Like, could there be a world where Sea of Thieves makes it into the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction? Could there be movie spin-offs that merge the characters together? I mean, the sky was the limit when we first started planning this stuff out. And in many ways, where the story for A Pirate's Life started was, this is our chance for us to do Pirates of the Caribbean 6.
Mm-hmm.
It takes place in the Sea of Thieves. And that idea that if you watch the movies, A Pirate's Life does happen after the last movie that was released.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen the last movie, it's all about the pirate's life is diminished. Jack is a shadow of his former self. And that idea of what if Jack could be reinvigorated, could discover the meaning of the pirate's life again, but doing that in the Sea of Thieves, that was just like, well, that's a bold, ambitious thing to aim for. And that was the energy put into the story.
It definitely rings true when you play if you watch all the films and then you play The Pirate's Life through, you definitely get that theme through, especially at the end where, the Black Pearl turns into gold and, they fly off into the sunset, they sail off into the sunset. And Jack says he's going to return. So, I won't ask you the question because it might come up later in the podcast. But yeah, so that's all the sort of open-ended questions. And now, do you remember last?
I have one more.
Go ahead.
Because you told us where your passion comes from Disney and stuff like that. But before you worked at Rare, you worked somewhere else in the game industry, right?
Yeah, I did. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So what made you decide to work for Rare, or were you invited, and how did that came to be?
That's a great question, and it may come across that I'm, and this isn't true, obsessive about Disney. That Disney, Mike loves Disney. It's all about. It's like what I respect, what I love about Disney is what I love about Rare. They're the same thing to me. And one of the reasons why I would flick through Official Nintendo magazine growing up and see those full page adverts for Rare and just daydream was Rare to me was like the Disney of games. And what I respect are companies and groups of individuals that live by a set of principles, that you can tell something is undeniably Rare in the same way you can tell something is undeniably Disney. And like, speaking personally, all I've ever aspired to is to feel like I'm part of something greater. We're not just making games any which way. We have a set of guiding principles and a set of values. And I think Disney comes under a lot of criticism, but they certainly have a set of values which guide their creative process. And I think Rare has exactly the same. So I see them in the same way in my mind. They're about creating moments that last a lifetime, create experiences that change people's lives, even though it is just games, right? Games can be more than just that. They are an escape for people. And I never forget what a privilege it is to work at a company like Rare.
Okay. Thank you.
Happy with that answer, Blubber?
Yeah, well, kind of. I still didn't know if he applied or got an offer, but
wants to know about the employment history.
I'll tell you the story. He's in print somewhere. I think it was Golden Sands blog post. So I'll tell you the story.
All right.
So I before I even got into the industry was a Rare super fan. Won't surprise you. So when I started working at Blitz Game Studios, which was a studio founded by the Oliver twins, who created the Dizzy series of games. on the ZX Spectrum Commodore 64. So I joined day one. Everybody knew I was a Rare superfan. So the art director on the project I worked on at Blitz, it was a game called Tack. It was the Nickelodeon cartoon platformer, one of the first game I ever worked on. The art director of that project worked as an artist at Rare. And he knew I was an absolute Rare superfan. And I remember him grabbing me one day, and he'd actually, if he watches this, he'll probably be horrified when he's telling me this story. He'd actually photocopied, color photocopies of the game design document of Banjo-Kazooie with all of Greg's original level designs. And he had the whole game design Bible for Banjo-Kazooie. And we both pored over it in a meeting room. And to the point where when I left, he actually gave me his Killer Instinct pin, which the staff members all got when they went to E3 to show off Killer Instinct, because he'd been part of that project. So he gave me the pin as almost you'll get to Rare one day. You know, that's your destiny. You've got to get to Rare one day. So I left to go work, so I wanted to change. And, you know, this is me F5ing Rare's website back in the old Scribes days, and there wasn't any design jobs. So I moved on to Codemasters, and I started worked on the Dirt series of driving games, New Challenge, and worked with an individual called Andrew Dennison, who later became the software director at Rare. And he instantly knew I was a Rare superfan, and he was a Rare superfan. So we worked together on Dirt 3, talking about how great it would be to one day work at Rare. And then one day he got an offer to work at Rare. And I remember chatting to him in a meeting room saying, I'm so glad you're going to go be software director at Rare. Like, I have to get there, Andy. Like, I want to go work at Rare. That's where I want to be. I'll do anything. I'll take a pay cut. I'll do anything I can to get to the company. And he was like, yep, but we'll see how it goes. But I know what's in your heart. And I kind of trusted each other that he'd be the first person to let me know if there was an opportunity. And pretty much a year to that day, I got a text. And I think the text was in all caps, which was, what's your notice period? Give me your CV now. Or there's jobs opening up. And within a week, I was at Rare having an interview.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, and it was the second time I'd been to Rare, because before I went to Codemasters, after leaving Blitz, I had an interview then, which was before the Connect series of games. I think I'm not sure, but I think it was around the time that Cameo 2 was being mooted and a potential sequel to Perfect Dark. I interviewed then, and it all kind of fell through as if something had changed at the company. So, like, me trying to get to Rare was pretty much the story of me being at the other two companies I was at as well.
All right.
Sorry to ramble, but yeah, I've given you the full version. Yeah,
it's an awesome story. I'm glad I asked.
You better not ask for more information, because it'll be the CV next, won't it, Blubber? Trying to recruit Mike.
Right.
Okay, so any other questions, Blubber, before we move on to the next?
No, we can move on now. Thanks.
Okay, so if you remember last time, we had a little round of yes or no. Essentially, we'd ask you questions, and you could only answer with yes or no. Okay. So we're doing it again. Surprise, cool. Surprise. Cool. So yeah, just yes or no. You can't say maybe. So starting off, will we see Stitcher Jim again?
No.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Jim's story is over. It's done. He's fulfilled his purpose. Okay.
It's just sorrow.
Oh, that's actually a bit sad. That's teared me up a bit.
Yeah.
God.
Well, there goes all the other follow-up questions.
Yeah, well, just moving. Will we see world changes like Port Merrick when Flameheart does eventually return?
I'll say yes.
Okay. Don't need to elaborate. This one, I think I know the answer. Is the Captain coming to Sea of Thieves in 2024?
No.
Okay. will we see the Great Warrior in 2024?
No.
Okay. Will we will we ever see the temple with the cure for the skeleton curse in game
Yes.
in 2024? Sorry, was that a no?
That's a no.
That's a no. Is there a new Banjo game in development at Rare?
No.
Okay. I was expecting a bit of and R in there.
No.
You shouldn't have asked at Rare.
Okay, fine. Is there a new Banjo game in development?
No.
Okay. Will we see the Burning Blade ship cosmetic set in 2024?
Yes.
Cool. There we go. That's the big question done. So yeah, that's all the yes or no questions. They weren't too bad, were they?
They weren't too bad. No, they're all right. They're fine.
I was really surprised with some of the answers, especially the gym one. We'll elaborate more later in the podcast.
Yes.
So with that done, and now we're restoring your vocabulary, so feel free to say more than yes or no.
Thank you.
We've got some more broad questions about sort of the Sea of Thieves, the lore, what might be coming to the game, and maybe some past stuff that we have some burning questions.
Sure.
Because I've been prattling on for ages. Blubber, would you like to take the first couple of questions?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of players are really into the lore of Sea of Thieves. And of course, not every update is there to satisfy everyone. But it has been a while since the lore fanatics had anything to eat. So what can they expect in 2024? And what can you tell us about upcoming adventures?
Great. So I think what I'll start with is talking about the kind of flow of adventures that we released previously. So the kind of goal behind all of that was to build out the trifecta. Let's call it the trifecta of the Dark Brethren now residing in the Sea of the Damned, and they have their own vision for the Pirate's Life, splintering off from Flameheart's vision for the Pirate's Life. We've got Flameheart and the Reapers, and we've got the Pirate Lord. So like, and there's obviously an ancient connection running with arguably all three of those kind of parties. So like exploring each of those was very much with the thought process of having groups within the Sea of Thieves that have very different visions for the Pirate's Life and how things could potentially plan out in the Sea of Thieves, and then the ability to tell stories that bring each of those groups in conflict with each other. What 2024 will focus on, probably won't be surprising at all, is, I'll say, paying off, but also I would say making Flameheart a real character for the first time. I think for many players outside of your good selves, Flameheart, they may have seen Flameheart in promotional art, they may have heard whispers of him, but he's not really been a real character. He's been a spectre, something behind the scenes pulling the strings. So bringing him onto the stage for the very first time is really what we want to do in 2024. It doesn't mean that those other threads that I've mentioned aren't going to be explored, but I think rather than doing everything at once, we'll probably move the lens around onto the different groups. This year is very much the year of Flameheart.
Can I just, sorry, Blubber, I know you might have another question lined up there. Just to interject there. So it seems to me in 2022, was it? 2022, 2023, it seems like Rare, or at least the story changed. Not the story. The world sort of changed from Athena's Fortune being the good guys and Reapers being the bad guys to the Reaper's Bones possibly being a viable alternative to, you know, the Pyro Legend factions. Have I got that right? Am I correct with that?
Yeah. So in that spirit, for sure.
In that spirit. So in that sense, with the Dark Brethren, will we eventually begin to see them as another viable choice? So the players might side with them in the future, or they're more fleshed out like the Reaper's Bones, where I wouldn't call Flameheart an anti-hero, but he is an alternative to the Pirate Lord. Will we see the Dark Brethren sort of catch up in that regard, or are they destined to remain the sort of I guess, main antagonists.
So that's unlikely to be this year, but you could argue that one in their lore, Wonder wants exactly the thing you've just described, which is to grow in power and influence in the Sea of Thieves. So that's unlikely to be something we'll explore this year. But I think the Dark Brethren as a faction, as an entity, is something we will explore in the future. One, because especially with Wanda and Amaranta and Duke, they are so goddamn interesting, and there's so much potential they have. But I think right now, doing the idea justice of there's Ramsey and the Pirate Lord, with Merrick and Bell, and what they want to achieve for the pirate's life, and Flameheart is very much the flip of that coin. It's almost the complete opposite vision for the pirate's life. It's not about the crew bond; it's about conquest. And I think we've got a lot there to go pay off and explore. So that's where we're going to focus first. Dark Brethren are still there in the background, and we will move to them in the future, no doubt, and other things that aren't yet part of the Sea of Thieves. But I think, we need to focus on the flip side of Ramsey first.
I think the that approach sounds more encouraging. Obviously, as a Reaper stan, I like the Reaper's bones and stuff, but really, it's not like my whole personality or anything, is it? It's more so that...
You are the servant of the flame.
Exactly, I just haven't got the mask on today. It's more so just having that payoff or focus on the Reaper's bones that I think we've been waiting for quite a while since Return of the Damned. And I'd sooner have that focus and waiting on other things that, we're waiting for payoffs, etc., to have that sort of catharsis, I guess, where that's wrapped up nicely. That's wrapped up nicely. We've had a payoff, and now we can move on to other things. It's not like all different things weaved into the same. We do a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and a little bit of that, and it just carries on going. So it's encouraging to hear that it's definitely focused on that Flameheart aspect for this year. Don't worry, I'm not upset that we have to wait longer for the Dark Brethren. I wouldn't expect it this year either.
It's very challenging in the way of having a narrative rollout that's really fulfilling for everyone. And the just quickly, the kind of backdrop to all of this is you want a world that has all these layers and all the different meanings carved into it. You want to have a world with lots of different players on the stage, like in like you say, you're a whole personality, but I almost mean that sincerely. The fact that different characters resonate with different parts of the community. Like if you'd asked me in 2018, that is what we'd love to have, and we have that, and we've got potential stories and threads, mind-blowing threads planned out, but at the same time, we are first and foremost building an interactive gameplay experience, and delivering lore while also giving people what they want in terms of sandbox additions and new mechanics. And sometimes that works part and parcel with moving the lore forwards. Sometimes it feels a little bit of a stretch, or it's just completely tangential to that. I think it is a challenge because some people just want the lore, some people just want gameplay, and there's a lot of people that want both. Like, balancing that is a challenge, especially on a game like ours where it's always evolving.
Feels like you've almost got such a broad appeal, and I think I discussed this before in one of my videos. I'm not plugging, by the way, don't watch my videos, where you've added so much to the game since launch that you now have different groups of people, and more so individuals that want different things. Like, I really like PvP, but I really like the story in the game. Other people like loot gathering, and they like fishing, and they like safer seas, just to use an example. And then the next person likes PvP, but they also like loot gathering as well, and they like safer seas. So you've got this massive amount of people, and how do you add a season that pleases everyone? And then the next one has to please everyone, and then the next one after that. So I understand the aspect that we have to wait for certain things just because everyone needs a slice of the pie, essentially.
And I love that though.
Yeah.
I love the fact that the game has grown to be this diverse collection of different experiences. I love that. I think it especially when you're working on a game for so long. Like this year, I personally would have worked on Sea of Thieves for 10 years. It's a decade from it being a PowerPoint deck to it being a prototype to it being a game in production to being the game with almost 6 years of updates after launch. It's 10 years of solving problems and coming up with new solutions to brand new problems. And I think the fact that it is a complex game with an incredibly diverse community is what keeps it interesting, because you're always solving new problems and making new stories. My hope in all of this is that it gives people that ultimate pirate fantasy, but not in a generic pirate way, but that Sea of Thieves as a brand feels unique and it's got its own spin on all the pirate things that you might have daydreamed about. And I think that's why the Dark Brethren exists. That's why Flameheart exists. It's putting a spin on these different pirate personas.
Well, thank you for the the detailed answer there. Thank you. Blubber, do you want to ask another question?
Yeah, it was going to be the Stitcher Jim one, but I feel less motivated now.
Ask it anyway.
So we know that Stitcher Jim's, I don't know if it was his body or just his skull, but it transformed into Flameheart's new body. So that's fine. Jim doesn't have a body anymore, but is his soul in the Sea of the Damned somewhere?
So you're giving me the chance to give a more nuanced answer.
All right.
So will you see Stitcher Jim in the form you've seen him in before? No. There has to be some element of finality to what's happened in the story. Is Jim's soul or an essence of Jim still out there and could be part of future stories? Yes, but probably not in the way you'd expect. So it's a nuanced thing, that one. I mean, I love Stitcher Jim, like love his melody, love the music that's so synonymous with him. There's many ways he could factor into the story in the future, but it won't be in the way you'd expect.
Okay.
Is short follow-up question then to that one. Is Jim still very much aligned with Flameheart, or do we think he might have regretted his decision to sort of go back to him?
Yet again.
Yes, again, yeah.
He certainly regrets his decision, but it was too late a long time ago.
Fair
It's
enough.
way past that point now.
Interesting things to think about there. That's a whole month of content for me, so thank you, Mike. This really why we've got you on, Mike. It's just a content machine.
I'm a pleasure. It's a pleasure to help you out there.
All right. I got another tough question, if you're ready for that.
I'm ready.
This pops up in the community quite a lot. So are there any talks at Rare about quitting support for the old generation and focusing on the new generation so Sea of Thieves as a game can grow even further?
No, not at the moment. I think if you see the kind of stats, which I don't have off the top of my head, but there's more people than you think playing on the older hardware. Of course, we've seen what other games have done. You look at games like Flight Simulator, where you can play it on Series X, but you can stream it on older hardware. It's like, that's great. Does that really make sense for an online multiplayer experience? Probably not, with the latency. So, yeah, I don't think we're at that point yet where that's realistic. As frustrating as that might be to what the potential could be if that wasn't the case. But I think if you, one thing's true, which is if you're part of creating a game, you do want that game to be played by as many people as possible and to have an impact on as many people as you can. So, yeah, I think it's too soon, even though the hardware is quite old.
With
enough.
that then, Mike, this might be a bit, I don't want to put this in a nasty way, but because there's a lot of debate in the community about the truth of this, is there an element that when you design an update, you have to think about, we need to make this experience playable on previous generation consoles? Does that factor it in, or is it a sense of the old consoles don't really limit your design at this time, so you're pretty much just doing what you want, really? Does that make sense if I explain that correctly?
No, you have. Like, is it a factor in filtering what we design? So that discussion, I can assure you, is not that kind of level of can we get this running on hardware is never part of discussions with the design team. I mean, from a design perspective, yes, there's limitations that we're aware of, which is the world is a certain size and there's 6 ships in that world optimally. They're your limitations, but that's the play space that we're dealing with. Like whether it runs at performance might be raised by engineers when we've designed everything and we're breaking it down and we're taking the team through it and we're getting work spun up. But yeah, from a creative perspective, I'd find that quite. I think I'd be horrified by that if that was filtering our ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a factor at all.
I suppose you have that element of sort of scaling. You've got ways you can scale things back on the older consoles to make it run, can't you? I assume, if there's ever an issue like that, it's not a case of, oh, well, we're just throwing out the whole update because it doesn't work on the Xbox One sort of thing.
I mean, if you think about Sea of Thieves, I mean, it's already, I think of the minimum PC spec, it's already running across a variety of different devices and configurations, and Xbox One, the original Xbox One hardware, is just another type of device and configuration of hardware. So, yeah, it's no different to the variety of PC specs.
Even the Series X and S version works off the hard drive, doesn't it? For, you don't have to have it installed on your memory card or your internal. It can work off just a bog standard hard drive.
That's right.
That's actually very impressive. I don't know any other games that do that. I might be wrong, but yeah, thank you for answering that.
Yeah, I mean, and I won't ramble too much because I'm giving very long answers. I'm going to be on my best behaviour now. But there's a spirit to Sea of Thieves that has been true when we thought about the design, which is all the decisions we make should be about removing barriers that prevent players from playing together. So Sea of Thieves was the first Xbox game in Xbox Game Pass because it was easier for friends to get together and play a multiplayer game that they may not have played before. Some of the key decisions around our progression system have been removing barriers that prevent players from playing together. You could go play with a player who starts playing tomorrow and you could take them on those experiences that you've got access to. And when we think about where do we want to see Sea of Thieves supported across hardware, it should be about allowing the greatest number of people to be able to play together, and then cross-play across all of those devices.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. It's very encouraging. If you're on an old console, don't worry. You can still play Sea of Thieves until further notice, anyway.
Indeed.
I'll take one, and then we go back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been quite a lot of quality of life improvements lately. But sadly, with the addition of guilds, it does take quite a few clicks before it's at sale now. So can we expect any more streamlining of these menus in the near future?
Yeah, I think so. I actually responded to a Twitter question exactly that this morning. So overhauls of the main menu have been designed over the years. We've never put them into production because the team working on them has been needed elsewhere. Like we've been doing something with captaincy or guilds or our other releases that have just taken more of their time. I think you could argue it's overdue. I think I'd agree with that. I think what we wouldn't want to do, and you wouldn't do this as part of development anyway, which is do that overhaul while you're currently expanding or adding new functionality. You'd want the dust to settle before you do that overhaul. I think we're in a position now where that dust is settling with all the expansions and things that have been added to that flow. I think as we look to this year and beyond, looking at the front end again and going, what could we offer on the front end that we don't currently offer, and how could we make that a more approachable experience is something that we're looking at.
All right, great to hear.
Is it my turn now, Blubber?
You have my permission, yes.
Thank you, creator. Almighty one. So this one's a bit related to Sea of Thieves, but I guess it sort of more pertains to you, Mike, you as a person anyway. So I've noticed the SAS levels on Twitter have been, or X should I say, have been dialed up quite recently. It wasn't, I guess I don't think I've seen you be like that until fairly recently, unless I just miss all your best tweets or something. Has your patience run thin on some of the less patient members of the community, or is it more so just having a bit of fun with it now? And that's the better approach.
So when you say sass, like, is it sass? But I have to say, other people in the studio have said, I've seen your sassy responses. So it's definitely coming across that way. Like,
it's not a bad thing. Sass isn't a bad thing.
I'd say you'll see a difference as well between if the question or comment is reasonably respectful and well reasoned, I'll respond normally, or I'll have fun with GIFs. I think what I would want people to take away from it is, like, I'm not going to block you. I'm not going to shy away from hard questions. I will respond, because that's what I would want as a player of a game. The fact that there is a two-way communication and some things aren't off limits. Like, that's what I would want. So sometimes I'm doing it not to be cheeky, but to be responsive, even if they're not getting the answer they want.
Mm. Oh, I think that's
because I think some people say things and expect to be blocked, and I'm like, I'm not blocking you, but I will respond with a GIF from Groundhog Day or whatever I can find.
I mean, no judgment from me. Sometimes you do need to turn up the sassometer there, just to get your point across.
But I do have probably, obviously, some things online are extremely offensive, things that people share. I do have just quite a thick skin when it comes to that stuff, so I don't it doesn't really make me overly emotional or offended. I'm just kind of going, well, they're just shouting into an echo chamber. And I get that wherever that frustration comes from, I understand the root of it. So yeah, it definitely does annoy me.
There's a difference between calling you a nasty word and saying, "Oh, Sea of Thieves is shit," to "I don't like this, it's not for me," or "I don't like this, here's what we could do better," isn't there?
And there is, yeah. And if it's the former example, you're definitely going to get a GIF. If I ever get a GIF from you as a response to one of my tweets, I know I've ruined it for you. You're not coming back on the podcast. GIFs can be good. GIFs can be a good response as well if it's relevant to the question.
As long as it's not from Groundhog Day, we'll be fine.
Indeed. Yeah, they're normally the sassy ones.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because I found it quite funny, to be fair. But yeah, I'll move on to something a bit more Sea of Thieves focused. I did ask this one last time, and that was nearly 2 years ago now. So are there any plans to have us visit the Shores of Gold again? Because I know Legend of the Veil sort of started like that and wasn't quite the scope, or, it worked better as a voyage. But basically, has that answer changed?
I don't think it's changed. I think I can't remember what I said on an original podcast. Did I mention the fact that it was originally planned as part of Vale of the Ancients? Yeah,
it was more so a sort of pirate legend voyage where you'd go to the Shores of Gold, and that just morphed into Vale of the Ancients.
Yeah. It did, and then the kind of second version of that was Vale of the Ancients was conceived with these modules that could be played in different orders and different configurations, and one of those modules was going to be the Shores of Gold. So this idea of the conquest of the Shores of Gold, or a return to the Shores of Gold, is something that's been in mind for a while. I think there's no plans to do that currently. I mean, I would love to do that. I think it's such a cool location. So much time and effort went into it. It's obviously such a key part of that story, the climax of Shores of Gold. If we go back there, I think it's got to live up to the fact of what that location means. And I think that's always been the reason why we haven't done it, because the reason to go back there just hasn't been strong enough. There's certainly reasons to go back there in terms of the way the lore could play out. But yeah, it would just need to make sense before we do it.
It would, with season 11 out today, it would cut down a lot of the sailing time. Just saying, you've solved that problem now.
That is true. Although breaking through the shroud is pretty cool, you'd still want that bit. But yeah, I think, I'd be surprised if we never do that.
Yeah, I love the island so much and I miss it as well.
I know. It's great. And I think, truth be told, there's not that many people that have probably even seen it.
Yeah.
One of the changes this is not really answering your question, but one of the changes we are going to make, not with the launch of season 11, but next month, is just unlocking the tall tales. So
so you can...
So the intended order is still very clear in terms of how they're optimally meant to be experienced. I mean, especially with Shores of Gold, where you really want to play through them in order and get the Briggsy relationship and the memories leading to the different stones. But just allow people to go straight there if they want to just see the type of content that's on offer. So that we are going to unlock all the tall tales.
That's really interesting.
We did it with Legend of Monkey Island, and we're going to retroactively apply it to the others.
Oh, I didn't know it was done for Monkey Island. That's the first I've heard of that.
Yes.
Yeah, just memories of defeating the Gold Hoarder, getting our Pirate Lord speech, and that amazing version of Becalmed. It just, proper nostalgic feeling there. So I'd love to go back. But that's interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Follow-up question to that, because what you did with the Monkey Island Tall Tales is add additional rewards. Mm-hmm. So, logical question: are you guys going to do that with the other Tall Tales?
That's we don't have plans to do that, but we certainly could. I think with Legend of Monkey Island, it was you were aware of the feedback, right? That the rewards could feel stronger for completing the tales. And we wanted to do that for Legend of Monkey Island, but we didn't have the time to get it all done for launch. So it's like, well, let's not do it. Let's do it, but we'll just release it later. I think reason to re-engage with Shores of Gold and A Pirate's Life would be a good thing. No plans to do that, but I love the idea of us doing that.
All right, cool.
I feel like do it every year, and then we've got an excuse to play through Shores of Gold every single year. Yeah. Although actually the story is enough. That's a bit greedy, isn't it? Asking for rewards just to play it. Yeah,
I've still got special memories of Shores of Gold and what it felt like at that time. I still absolutely treasure the experience of Shores of Gold. I'm really happy that a lot of people look back on it quite fondly.
Yeah, it's just it was mad waking up one day and you've got this whole full-length campaign to play, and for free as well. And Anniversaries, I hark on about how good Anniversary was, but sort of like when A Pirate's Life came out, you had 5 Tall Tales to play and you had no idea what was going to happen and stuff.
Sometimes we are our own worst enemy, that whole, we'll add story quests, but we'll add 9 of them. It's going to be an epic story. You can kind of see in A Pirate's Life and the Legend of Monkey Island as well, which is if we're going to do it, let's do it in style. Let's really go to town on it.
Okay, got you. Well, that actually sets me up nicely for the next 2 sort of questions. Going forward with Tall Tales, is that going to be exclusively for crossovers like A Pirate's Life and Monkey Island, or will we eventually see a Tall Tale or maybe a small series that focus on the Sea of Thieves story, pure, as in there's no crossovers or what have you?
Great question. So when it comes to crossovers first, I mean, crossovers could take many different forms. We've seen crossovers in Pirate Emporium. It could be as simple as a character turning up as an NPC in the world, obviously treated very carefully, and us really reasoning why it makes sense in the Sea of Thieves world and adding to our lore. And then the kind of fully fledged gold star tall tale approach, which we did with Pirates of the Caribbean and Legend of Monkey Island. I don't see that level of crossover again at the moment in terms of tall tales. I think in terms of IPs that really work well in the Sea of Thieves, that we feel we can do authentically and are close enough in the spirit to Sea of Thieves that they work and they come from the heart. I think we've done the 2. We've done the 2, right? There's a reason why this Mad Monkey ship was in a Sailor's Grave and A Pirate's Life, because we hoped to do it at that stage and we had a story in mind, but it was the second IP that we really saw a lot of potential in. So don't expect us to do more left field crossovers with Tall Tales. I think the focus now is very much on telling that Sea of Thieves lore and on what makes Sea of Thieves special. Like, we've had these fun explorations in weaving together Pirates of the Caribbean and Monkey Island because it means so much to us and the games that Sea of Thieves has become, but Sea of Thieves also is its own game with its own world, its own rules, and that's what's most precious. So I think we'll be staying there.
All right. So no Cutthroat Island crossover.
Yeah, I love Cutthroat. I know it didn't do very well on its Sanka studio, but I still to this day love Cutthroat Island. But no Cutthroat Island.
It's my favorite pirate movies. Yeah.
I think
It's great. It's a fantastic movie.
I think I asked you about One-Eyed Willie, didn't I, at Sort of Fest? See if we get a light Goonies crossover with him. But I think I remember this correctly. You said you don't know if it would necessarily fit Sea of Thieves in the sense that do people really know who One-Eyed Willie is?
I would go back to the Legend of Monkey Island. So that is like the creative vision for that was not only is it something that's a massive inspiration to Sea of Thieves, particularly in the tone and the humor, and obviously Sea of Thieves is its own thing as well. But huge fans, myself included, of Monkey Island as a world. And it had the added bonus of, there's actually something, it's a game experience first. It's not a movie series like Pirates of the Caribbean. There's a gameplay opportunity here to do point and click gameplay in 3D. Like that was really pushing on the limit of, there's lots, people who love it, truly, truly love it. But there's also a lot of people out there who don't know Monkey Island. Mm-hmm. I think the Goonies would be that times 100 in terms of people that love the Goonies would see what's special about it, but there would be a lot of people going, what, where's this come from? This makes no sense. So it's one of those things that would be awesome to do as like the ultimate vanity project, but I'm not sure it would please the community at large.
I'd be happy, Mike. So
I know.
do it for us.
And I'd be happy. But yeah, not sure that's the right use of airtime.
Sorry. What about crossovers with your own heritage legacy content? Like we still see that Treasure Trove Cove map in the beginning. So will we ever go there?
What with those pirates in the opening? They were sailing aboard the Salty Hippo, weren't they? That's it. They picked it up from your good self, Treasure Trove Cove, and then they sailed to the Sea of Thieves using their map. And maybe that is the law.
All right. Okay.
No, so your question was around crossovers with rare IPs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think always goes back to that authenticity word. I think how do we do it in a way that lifts up the original and adds something to our world? And I think we felt really comfortable in that with Pirates of the Caribbean, Freedom of the Pirates Life, what it means to Jack discovering that through the Sea of Thieves. Then the same Guybrush is a pirate wannabe, but in the Sea of Thieves he can be a legend. He is the legend of Monkey Island because your dreams come true in the Sea of Thieves. There's always a real kind of connective tissue that made it make sense. I think we'd have to find that in other IPs to do it justice, especially these things, you can play through them quite quickly, but in terms of the work it takes, especially working with a third party like another company as well, it's a lot of work to get these things off the ground. So you've really got to believe in it, through and through to do it justice.
Okay.
So my last sort of follow-up question then, if we're talking about Tall Tales, before Blubber can have his go again. So what is the hidden Tall Tale book in the extended Pirate Legend hideout? So just to refresh, you've got the wall of Tall Tale books from A Pirate's Life and Shores of Gold, and then you can open that little door and there's that green book, and it looks like it's got the Shores of Gold symbol on it. Are you able to share a little bit more about what that is, or any plans for that?
So there was initially 10 Tall Tales planned for the Shores of Gold. Only 9, it was 10. It was even bigger than you think. And A Pirate's Life was 10 Tall Tales as well in its initial, very, very initial pitch. And very, very quickly, when you start planning out the details of the story, you condense and deliver the beats in different ways. But yeah, there was a whole 10th tale as part of Shores of Gold that we didn't do.
I don't know how true this is, and I can't remember where I heard it or read it, but was it originally planned to be a little tease for Flameheart, sort of like how the Seabound Soul was really building up to that throughout the Tall Tale?
How do you mean? Sorry, that it was originally a Flameheart tall tale.
I don't know if it was based on the art, because I think pictures of it exist on ArtStation or something, and it's very similar to the. I might be misremembering now. I'd have to double check this. But from what I looked at the art and from what it was discussed when, it was shown to me, that it looks like this was going to sort of tease Flameheart as like a 10th part of the Shores of Gold, where it's not actually part of the Shores of Gold, but it's more so like an epilogue, so to speak.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. That's not something that was part of their plans. There was a kind of making the Ashen Age Tall Tales a trilogy. There was a third tale originally planned there, which is where the idea for Flameheart in the Sky kind of came from. So you'd have this arc of Pendragon would release him and Seabound Soul, and then the third tall tale, which was going to be called Stitch's Sorrow, would be a ghost ship battle around a fort with Flameheart floating in the sky above, puppeteering Stitcher Jim below.
That sounds good. Wow.
But we delivered it in a different way, because we basically took that concept of the Flameheart head and the ghost ships and we made it into a sandbox kind of emergent event, like a world event, sorry. So it kind of paid back to the sandbox in a bigger way.
That's really interesting. Potentially that's...
And even that kind of puppeteering aspect we kind of delivered as part of Herald of the Flame. So those ideas did live on, just through a different form.
I think perhaps that's where the confusion has come from. I'd need to double check. I don't know where I saw that on who I was discussing it with, but I don't know if that third Tall Tale book would be on ArtStation if it wasn't used. But I know some concept stuff does end up on there that's never used. But that's really interesting. That's way more than I was actually expecting from that answer. So that's great. Blubber, any burning questions?
Well, I want to add on to this again, because I'm guessing that 10th Tall Tale eventually that got combined with the other ones then, right?
It was actually there was obviously the spyglass mechanic as part of Stars of a Thief, and one of the original ideas was you would take the rum bottle spyglass would reveal different constellations in the sky. So it was kind of the tale of a rum runner. That was originally part of the story, like this rum runner in the Sea of Thieves, and you would drink these specially brewed grogs. And one version of the lore, and I really like this version that we were planning out, was that the skeletons, like the gold skeletons, the plant skeletons, the shadow skeletons, the nature of that transformation was through drinking different grogs.
All right.
So you drink kind of the flowery grog and you become the plant skeleton, and there'd be the dark grog that would become the shadow skeleton. So it was like this interesting kind of tongue-in-cheek spin, and the rum runner would have these cursed grogs. So you could drink a cursed grog, you'd look through the rum bottle spyglass, and you'd see a different version of the night sky where the constellations would be pirate themed. So you'd see grog chests, you'd see treasure chests. So it was a whole tale around the legend of the rum runner.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Which mechanically I would love to do, but Shores of Gold, like, goes back to your question, Shiny, which is it was never really it was always a very pure story. It was about reaching this fabled island and telling this story of the greed of the gold hoarder, and the rum runner story just didn't fit in as cleanly as the others, which is why it ultimately got de-scoped. But
Can we still put it down as official lore for the skeletons?
Yeah, why not? I love it.
Can we get hashtag...
There is more lore there, by the way. There is the whole, what is the skeleton curse? Where does it come from? We'll get into that in the future.
Okay, cool.
Can we get hashtag release the Chapman cut on Twitter trending so we can have that 10th Tall Tale as like a little bonus to Shores of Gold?
The team worked incredibly hard on Shores of Gold. It's pretty close to the Chapman cut. They did an incredible job.
That, Mike, what you've just told me there is made me hunger for more, for the cut content of Shores of Gold now.
You can imagine, like, there's that's across many of our releases, right? There's loads of ideas we get passionate about, and sometimes they come back in different forms, or sometimes they just become a bit of an anecdote. But yeah, there's always more ideas than when people always ask that question, like, will we ever run out of ideas on Sea of Thieves? It's like, You'd make this game for 100 years and never run out of ideas. There's always more ideas than you've got time to build. Always.
So
the world's too rich.
You've heard it here first, folks. Sea of Thieves is not a 10-year game. It's now a 100-year game. Thanks, Mike.
I think I might be a brain in a jar at that point.
I'll pass it down to my children. They will continue playing with my character.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
Yeah. I'll take it then again.
Yeah.
So the last time we talked, Mike, it was about clothing presets. So I heard it was a bit harder to realize than originally anticipated, but is it still in the works?
It's not in the works, unfortunately. It was very briefly in the works, and then went back on the treasure chest of desires. But yeah, it's not currently planned as part of any season releases, but totally understand we wanted to bring it to the game, and we know it's a community request. But this year we are trying to be absolutely focused on the sandbox and bringing new mechanics to the game.
Okay, sad to hear, but
I know
it's nice to get an update at least.
Yeah,
it's sort of quickly. It sort of feels like it was meant to be as part of the guilds update, because we've got the role clothing, haven't we? And a lot of the commendations require you to wear the full outfit, so it almost felt like it was going to slot in there. But do I have that right? It was originally meant to come with guilds. Short period it was in development.
It wasn't guilds. It was actually a release that was meant to sit in between captaincy and guilds.
Oh,
so the kind of rollout of balancing system-based features like captaincy and guilds with more kind of sandbox content, and just the way it worked out with, as you can imagine, ultimately people that make the game, and this game is making a game like this, it's all about personal relationships. It's all about allowing people to grow and work on the things that they want to work on. So naturally people get shuffled around, and new teams spring up, and old teams kind of transition into other teams, and we merge teams together. It's just part of running this game. So a release that we thought we were going to be able to have in between didn't actually happen, and it was part of that release. And that release was going to have a lot of things around refreshing voyages, refreshing the economy, having some more experiences on demand, which kind of then got brought into what Season 11 is, launching today.
Yep. Instead, we're doing this podcast.
Don't say that. We can play it afterwards. God. This is way more important, Blubber. Gosh. I'm excited to get those skeleton pieces, though, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, do you want to ask another question, Blubber?
Yeah, this is a fun question for you, Mike. So if you had to describe Sea of Thieves in 2024 with one word, what would it be?
Flameheart.
Oh, okay. And my follow-up question is, if you were to describe Sea of Thieves in 2025 with one word, what would it be?
Please say Flameheart.
I'm not going to say that. These questions. It's one word. What harm can it do? I'm going to say ancients.
Okay. Wow. That's great.
Finally,
I'm being careful there.
We'll see. We'll finally see that Flameheart is an ancient, and I was right all along. I think
I will say there will be an. Be careful what I say. There'll be an ancient connection as part of the season that brings Flameheart back.
That's interesting.
What he wants requires the ancients.
Okay, we can ask further, but we won't.
Mm-hmm. We know where the buck stops. Don't worry.
So a technical question then. We have this chest of Science Song. Well, we can take the skull out, but we can't place anything in it. So, are we able to place stuff in it in the future?
no plans to do that, but totally get it there is a bit of a consistency there that's not upheld. There is a reason for that, to keep the focus on the gameplay. But yeah, maybe. No plans to do that at the moment, but maybe.
All right. And those were my questions. So you can take it that way.
You've had it easy up until now, Mike. We're turning up the temperature now. I think I've actually asked most of mine. Actually, no, I haven't. I have thought of one, but I'm going to go with this one. So on the topic of sandbox changes, so we know that's the focus going forward as of after Season 11. In the E3 2016 trailer, we did see what looks to be some pirates that have turned into merfolk. And in Season 4, when the Breath of the Sea was released, in the trailer, it looks like they're sort of toasting like you do with the grog. So would there be any scope in the future of any potions that would sort of change our form to, maybe turn us into mermaids temporarily or something of the sort?
Great question. I'm not going to confirm anything, but I like that idea. I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. No elaboration needed. So yeah, the E3 2016 trailer. On the topic of that, actually, the E3 2016 trailer also has a model where a character is playing a fiddle. Is there scope for more instruments to come to Sea of Thieves soon, or at least in the future?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's an easy question.
I know the fiddle's right up there on the list for many people, that's a good thing. I think that people love those instruments and want more variety. So yeah, it'd be great to expand that in the future.
I'd love to see the organ added to our galleon, so we can, pretend to be Davy Jones as we sail. That would be interesting, or a harpsichord, something like that.
Yeah, that has been discussed.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to see more things to do while sailing. Although I guess diving is, takes up the first sail, but there's the other however many sailing trips you want to do after that. But yeah, I think if we're going to expand instruments, I think the fiddle and a piano / organ is where we'd go. Interesting.
Those two they'd be next on the list. Those two.
Obsidian fiddle and obsidian piano would be interesting. That's what people will be begging for next.
Think of the reaction.
God, imagine that as a Twitch drop or as a stretch goal for Community Day. The obsidian piano. The art team, write that down.
Shiny keys.
Shiny keys, yeah. Little green gems on them. That would be really cool. This is a really interesting one, and I don't think I'll get a straight up answer for this one, but you would be the one to be able to confirm this. So if we turn back to Lost Sands, we got our percentages of what the votes were, and we had the running total almost. People called it fixed. So when Return of the Damned...
would have been so much easier if it was fixed.
Exactly, yeah. You would have saved yourself, 6 to 12 months of development time, something like that?
You probably would have done 20 more decision points if you could just fix it.
Just fix it. So it seemed...
It was a genuine surprise, by the way.
No, I think...
I was obviously rooting for Merrick, but just thought it was going to be... absolutely going to be Flameheart.
I think we were getting tired of hearing about the fixes across all of us. Blubber, the other partners and stuff. We were getting sick of it, really. But that moves me slightly onto the next decision. So Return of the Damned, we didn't get the totals or the percentages, because if we did, people would call it fixed, and you didn't share them and people called it fixed. But I would like to know, how badly did Flameheart beat Pendragon? Do you have the statistics that you can share?
Not off the top of my head, but I remember, not as in specifically, but it was probably not as much as you think, but it was a conclusive victory. It was.
Was it over?
Both of them and Lost Sands did that all the way through.
Oh, really?
They were ebbing and flowing all the way through. And part of the plan originally was to have that live on the website, like an election ticker, going back and forth. But we shelved. We had the work done, but we shelved it because there was a worry that it wouldn't be a true choice. People would be gaming it and it would affect their choice. So we wanted to just be, let your conscience be your guide, just choose. So we removed that. But yeah, it was a conclusive victory for Flameheart.
Was it more decisive than the final results of Lost Sands then?
It was.
Yeah. So
not too surprising.
I was concerned that Pendragon was going to be saved when this got revealed. But I think people just wanted Flameheart back quite a lot. And
I think the ultimate argument I can make that it wasn't fixed was, we're all this time later and Flameheart's still not back. Because if you could fix it, you'd plan this out to be a lot more timely.
Next day,
even with Portmerrick, right? That took time to build up over time. We just started on that track based on the outcome of Lost Sands.
Interesting.
And it was very much: are we building Portmerrick or are we building a Reaper garrison? Which way are we going? Let the community decide.
That brings me on to the next question. So after Lost Sands, I guess I think it was round about when Portmerrick was revealed or the plans were discussed. And we also found out that there was going to be a Reaper garrison should the Reapers succeed in Lost Sands. Now, obviously, we don't know what's really going to happen with Flameheart because that's coming in a future season. And obviously, I'm not going to ask about that because surprises and stuff. Mm-hmm. But are you able to share a bit more about the plan should Pendragon would have won? Because I guess, you would have had ideas, and obviously they're not coming now, so there's nothing really to spoil. So are you able to share some more about that?
It involves the Sea of the Damned, like okay. Pendragon being the kind of envoy, the wielder of the sword, doing the Order of Souls work, more kind of ancient and Sea of the Damned themed. So we would have gone down that route, and Flameheart would have had another go in the future, as it were. But no, it was very much kind of telling the champion story, Pendragon story, if we'd gone down that route.
Interesting. That is, obviously it's, there's only so much you can do when you're brainstorming this stuff. So, I guess none of it would have even been gone into development until the results of Return of the Damned. But yeah, that's more than I was expecting.
Well,
so
it not in development, but you have to have a plan. So you have to have if we're junctioning this way or junctioning this way, what does that actually mean? And then once you know the result, then you put it into production. But yeah, it's the whole fix thing is really interesting, genuinely, because there's so many people that work at Rare and they work for the developers. I mean, it would get out if there was a fix. It would be a terrible thing to do, to lie so heinously to the community, because you wouldn't be able to keep that secret. There's such a deception.
Yeah,
it was 100% real, which what made it exciting.
It was funny because both sides were saying it was fixed both times. Yeah, and if we were to have a decision again, I think I would be able to be civil about it because it did wind me up at the time. Yeah, I don't think you'd fix that. And, like you said, if people found out about that or that got leaked, that would be, shit's hit the fan. And people would just refuse to participate in the future, wouldn't they?
Indeed. I think the only thing we learned was, particularly in Lost Sands, was I take the criticism that the dice may have been loaded in favour of one based on the how fun the gameplay was for each side. I think that was something that we tried to build into Return of the Damned, which was making sure that it was more equal, that it was a true choice rather than, well, I don't really care about Portmerrick, but the gameplay is more interesting, so I'll do that. I think that was definitely a learning we took from it, so definitely hold hands up there.
Yeah, it was definitely didn't go amiss, because I remember when we were discussing Return of the Damned, it felt fair that, everyone has the same roughly sailing distance, you're doing the same activities, and you both score points in the exact same way. But yeah,
it was something we were aware of in Lost Sands, but I think the whole design team believed, like, the moment we give players the choice to destroy something, that is just going to win. And if anything, it was the Lost Sands route was designed to be that's slightly more compelling from a gameplay perspective, because we knew, oh, this is very likely to be a loss, and that's why I was always on the side of Merrick, because I just thought that was more creatively interesting if Merrick won, because it was going against the grain almost. It was amazing about that side one.
So again, follow-up question. It's just reminded me. So I believe last time when you were on, I did ask in the yes or no question section if we were going to have more decision adventures in the future. And I think the answer was yes. If I'm not, I'm sorry if I've got that wrong. Is that still
yes.
on? It was yes. There we go. Is that still on the cards, or is it something that sort of in the wake of Return of the Damned, it's probably best to not let people decide because of the development sort of strain it puts on you guys?
Yeah, I think there's lots of potential decision points in mind. There isn't any decision points in production. I think there's definitely a learning. I mean, what was wonderful about adventures, including the decision points, was that regular, predictable rollout of lore. Where it got challenging was beyond the obvious, which is not everybody can keep up to date with the rollout of the lore. You have to play all the adventures to have the kind of true impact. And as much as we tried to design against that, it's hard to achieve that while trying to make the lore satisfying. And then you've got the issue of, to make it fundamentally feel different, you've got to build new mechanics, which makes adventures harder to deliver on a monthly basis. So you've always got this tension between story and gameplay, and where the community wants us to invest our time and where we want to invest our time. So I think the evolution of that is trying to be more like we were in the early years, where there is ongoing lore. The lore is moving forwards, but it's more tightly part of the gameplay. It's actually part of what you're doing. It's the reason why things are happening. I think that's the biggest learning from adventures. As much as like part of me adored it because you just had that regular delivery. I think now it's about tying it into the gameplay.
A bit like Hungering Deep and Curse Sales then, where you've got the world changes and that's the context of it, but it's mainly
really
gameplay.
Interesting. I mean, it's kind of interesting that was their first stab at it. I actually think it's probably the most pure version, because we hadn't learned anything. We were just doing what we felt was right. At the time, the community was in a different place. It was very much around, we just want content, we just want more experiences. So we kind of moved away from that. And then if you remember, we embraced Build Rat Adventures, which were purely based on focusing on mechanics. It's very hard to compare Sea of Thieves today to that first year, because the game is always evolving, and like the way we work now is slightly different. Like I wouldn't even say hand on heart, we probably weren't working that healthily in that first year either, because we were just gotta make loads of content, gotta keep making content. Whereas the way we work now is still full on, but it is more sustainable. So yeah, every year of Sea of Thieves is always different. So hard to compare to previous years.
Yeah, I do remember speaking to, I think it was Andrew and Joe at Sotfest, and I asked if all that content was sort of, held back. I don't know, was that after the documentary came out? I think it was after the documentary came out, and we know that you had to scale the game back for launch just because of technical issues. So stuff got cut, as it does with every game. But Andrew and Joe pretty much said that the content was made off the back of feedback rather than, hey, we've got this shark that is just being left for a future update. We're making all this stuff as feedback, and I think they said they were crunching a bit. So that sort of lines up with what you've just said.
Yeah, it was. I mean, think culminating in Anniversary is almost that second launch moment. That was kind of the energy in the studio at the time, which is, this game is not quite the game that we envisioned when we've got unfinished business, and we need to go knock it out the park in that first year. Some things landed better than others, but yeah, that was the energy in that first year. And the Sea of Thieves launch version was completed just before launch. It's almost impossible to hold content in Sea of Thieves because it's It's always moving. It's a live service. It's living. It's evolving. If you hold content, it just decays, and you wouldn't be able to put it in the game anyway without doing lots of additional work. So when things are completed, they get released. And just quickly on that thread that you mentioned, I think a hypothetical world where we had an extra year of development time and we didn't release to our players, and Sea of Thieves wasn't going to be an evolving game, I think what we built after that launch experience would have been very, very different. I think it would have gone more mid to end game. And like, as you probably heard in some of the interviews back then, we would have gone into captaincy and expanding legend play probably as their first call. I mean, the design I had worked on just before release to put into production post-release was about captaincy, owning your own ship, progressing your captainship as part of legend play. You could only be a captain if you were a pirate legend. And it wasn't until we saw the reviews and the reception that was like, well, that roadmap's gone. This is simpler than we first thought it was. This is about content, creatures, ship types, world regions. This is the stuff that people understand. That's what we need to double down on, which is what we did.
I'm so glad you've brought that up about the captaincy plans for, I think it was like June or something. It was talked about in the article after launch. So we've had captaincy, we've had guilds, which is sort of a extension of that. But it always comes back to this one. Will we ever be able to sail out of the waterfall in the Athena's Fortune? Is it Athena's Fortune? In the Athena's Fortune Tavern?
It is indeed, yeah. It's the waterfall's there, waiting, tantalising, teasing you to sail through. I think so. But you can understand why we're not prioritising that.
Of course, yeah.
The idea of hideouts, specifically guild hideouts, is so exciting. Something we've always wanted to do. I think there's so much potential there, but I think timing is, we're not even close to the timing being right. I think that is still a brand new system, whereas I'm not saying the focus needs to be sandbox forever, but I think we're definitely overdue on adding new mechanics that enrich all of your adventures in the Sea of Thieves. So yes, still progress your captainship. Yes, join new guilds and progress those guilds, but ensure that the adventures you have more combinations of mechanics. We need to inject new ingredients. That's what's most important now in the Sea of Thieves. And even when we talk about Flameheart and that, what I was talking about earlier of weaving the lore into the gameplay, Flameheart, to really break it down, we'll really treat that as a wrapper to enrich the sandbox. It's not going to be a story-focused update. There will be aspects of lore and story, as you would expect, but it really is on enriching the sandbox and making Flameheart a part of it.
It's very exciting, I have to say. I'm trying not to press you too much on it. But of course, if you did add the ability to sail out the waterfall now, it wouldn't be considered content, so...
This is it. This is the thing, isn't it? This is the joke. This is the joke. When that's probably the times when I am being sassy. I will admit it. But I know, and I totally get it. I totally get it where people are coming from. I think what might be lost on some people is that I understand you don't see it as content because it's not a module, it's not an ingredient that's added to the sandbox. It's something that's tracking progress, and it comes with cosmetics and it comes with a role. It doesn't make it any quicker to make. If anything, it makes it harder to make.
Well, we've seen with captaincy and guilds were a massive undertaking for the team, weren't they? Sort of technically speaking, dare I say, even more difficult than something like, I don't know, Legend of the Veil, or I'll use an example.
Sea Forts or the Megalodon, like or skeleton ships. I think what feels... I was saying this to the design team a couple of weeks ago, and this is not strictly true, but it's a way of thinking about it. I think there's so much we've added to Sea of Thieves since launch. That was a dream version of what Sea of Thieves was. So even before we launched this game, we were talking about captaincy. We prototyped a very early version of captaincy. The idea of persistent crews through guilds. Like at the time we were, are they guilds? Do we call them gangs? We weren't sure, but that idea of what guilds became was an idea right from those early days. I actually think where we're well, interestingly, with the launch of Season 11 today, a lot of those big ways of playing the game that we always dreamt about, we delivered now. So one way of looking at Sea of Thieves is we're actually in new territory now.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually shedded the baggage of, I know that idea we never did. We've got to do that idea. We've done the vast majority of those now. I take the waterfall point, not all of them, but we've done the vast majority of them. So, and we've the boundaries of the game are broader than they were back at launch. Now it's about building on that foundation. Now we're building things that we never thought about back at launch. And that, almost 6 years in, is what I find incredibly exciting, is that we're actually in truly new territory. We're actually truly in a live service now where we're making content on the whole that we never thought about or dreamt about before.
That's very exciting. Very exciting. I know, not to dwell too much on it, but I know a lot of people do have a bit of system fatigue, let's call it that, from season 9, 10, and 11. And obviously we had the issues of last year with season 10's delay, but I don't want to use it in the sense that we're past that point now and everything forward is to look forward to, because I think that devalues what everyone's been working on the last sort of year and a half. But more so for the listeners, if you're concerned that, you know, the last couple seasons weren't your cup of tea, I guess what you're saying, Mike, is look forwards to the next few seasons. Is that right?
Definitely. This I did mention it on the official podcast recently, which was that season 11, what launches today, is the last of that kind of core expansion of Sea of Thieves in terms of ways that you engage with the game. Building on captaincy, building on guilds, you know, really allowing you to play short sessions in Sea of Thieves or have those longer sessions should you want them. That's kind of the settling of what Sea of Thieves is. The focus beyond this is now just enriching the game that we have, which is also awesome to think about. That's our focus now.
Yeah, it's hard to not get excited about the rest of the year because it's almost like we've just got season 11 today and that's a brand new season, but it's nice to have things to look forward to. So yeah, moving on briefly, this one is probably not going to get a lot or, you know, a definitive answer, but who was the ghost lady in Lost Sands and the Shrouded Islands adventures? So you do remember the one we're talking about, right?
Which one are you referring to specifically?
So there was the ghost lady that looks like she's in shackles and she points when you're using the lantern in Shrouded Islands, and in Lost Sands, as sort of the Reapers were winning, the fog came in and then these spectres were appearing around the island and they were all different poses. And it was a hooded woman, well, I think it was a woman, with a sort of face covering and they had shackles on their wrist.
Yeah, so what was happening there was the veil, or the use of the word, the veil between the worlds was broken down. So you had elements of the Sea of the Damned crossing over. So they were just the memories of pirates from the Sea of the Damned.
So this person wasn't anyone special, it was just, say, a memory, let's say it's a memory.
It's a memory from an event that had previously happened in the Sea of Thieves that was now in the Sea of the Damned crossing over.
Will we get a little bit more information on that event at some point?
As other events that have taken place in the Sea of the Damned and why they've taken place, yes.
Okay.
Yes, not that one specifically. Think of that more just symbolic of memories crossing over. Because that veil between the worlds was being eroded.
Now, on a very similar note, who is Flameheart's ancient prisoner? Are you allowed to answer that?
Well, players have kind of spoken to them already.
God, that's cryptic. That's a really good answer. That's another video, I think. We've spoken to them already. Them as plural or them as a person?
I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to elaborate any further.
Will we be finding out more about that soon?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Sea of Thieves. I think last question from me. And Blubber, remind me, was this confirmed on the last podcast that there's potentially another novel in the works after Heart of Fire?
I've heard it somewhere.
Because I think, because you corrected my question.
I did.
What can you tell us about the next Sea of Thieves novel, if it exists?
So there isn't a third Sea of Thieves novel planned as yet. There are potential story ideas for where we would go next. Some of those were in the running for novel 2, and we ultimately chose Heart of Fire. It was a cool story to tell, tied into events people have seen and where we'll go in the future. But I've got a pretty good idea where we'd go with a third novel. But yeah, it's not being written as yet.
Fair enough. That was a different answer to what I was expecting. So your facts are wrong, Blubber. You should have corrected my question on the script.
So. I do remember hearing it somewhere. Maybe Chris said something, but I don't know. Can't remember.
Yeah. There's nothing kind of signed up to be released.
All right, but it would be probably Chris, right? If there were to be a third novel.
That would be my first choice. Absolutely, Chris does such a wonderful job, and he's a pleasure to work with.
What if
he did a lot of writing for Legend of Monkey Island. Got to work with him extensively last year as well.
Oh, that's nice to know. Yeah, good to hear.
Yeah, he absolutely nailed the tone.
But is he officially a Rare employee, or is he?
No, he's essentially a writer. He's essentially freelance, and he works for Sea of Thieves on a contract basis. But he's also free to pursue projects outside of Rare and Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So yeah, I get the chance to work with Chris on specific projects that we spin up related to Sea of Thieves, and the last one was Legend of Monkey Island.
All right, that's nice to know. I didn't know that, so that's great.
Yeah, it's cool.
Are you trying to poach more employees? First Mike's employment history, and now it's on to Chris.
I find that stuff very interesting, like the history of Rare and all the employees and all the staff working there.
Yeah, Chris is incredible. I mean, Sea of Thieves is so nuanced. There's so many layers to it, and it's not just let's go tell some fun pirate stories. It's the meaning behind it all. So writing original content for Sea of Thieves that fits into our lore, it's stories that it's building on threads that we have, but it also aligns purely with what Sea of Thieves is a tall order for any writer. Chris does a fantastic job. He really does.
You wrote Cameo too, right?
He did.
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
Just flexing your Rare knowledge now, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's like a lore facts bank. I did lie. I did think about this question, but I'll kick myself if I don't ask you it. In season 4, we got that voyage where you go to the different shrines. I think it's called Legend of the Sunken Kingdom.
Yes.
At the end, we see when we get the curse, we see that body there that's been afflicted with the curse of sunken sorrow. And it seemed to imply that there was a gold hoarder involved and there's a scholar involved as well. This person, this body that's in the tomb, and this female warrior, is the female warrior Belle?
No.
Okay. Will we be finding more about that story thread anytime soon?
Oh, not anytime soon, but eventually, yes.
Just keep it in the back of the mind.
There's a whole story behind the story of the ancients, and the various. Kind of goes back to that point I made earlier about the origin of the skeleton curse, and like really fundamental questions of the Sea of Thieves around why are there krakens and megalodons in this world? Where has it all come from? Why is the Sea of Thieves? Seems to imply it's set within the real world or something akin to our real world. Like, why is the Sea of Thieves and the waters within it different? So it's all part of this story behind the scenes, which we've got planned out. What we don't have planned out is how we deliver that to the game in a form that people will understand and appreciate. But basically it all relates to the origin story of the Sea of Thieves and the origin of the Ancients. All of that is planned out, and it's bloody cool. But it's just finding the right vehicle for that in game with the goal of making it front and center to the gameplay. What we need to do is open the library in game, so all of the people can just go in there and just read the books and read the compendium of Sea of Thieves history. It'd be lovely to do that, because there's too much to get into the actual playable experience.
Yeah, it was a topic on one of our previous podcasts, like somewhere for the people to learn about the lore in game, because there's so much to learn about.
There is. Yeah, and that was kind of factored into the thinking around it. It became the ship's log, but the ability to read books that are effectively like tall tale books with graphics and text, but you can't take them with you as like loot items. That was where, when we were developing Captaincy, that was a thought of, this means we could have a library now with books that people can read but not take away. We've kind of got that functionality. It's just where that lines up, and I think it would please a lot of people, but it would also leave a lot of people a little bit cold. But I love the idea.
Maybe Umbra can work on that.
Indeed, she'd make a great librarian. Tattoo artist on the side.
It's a tattoo artist side hustle, mainly librarian.
Just a librarian now with my custom bookmarks.
If you need someone that's extremely cheap, aka free, to write this library in game, Captain Blubber is available for work.
I'm a native speaker, won't work. Sorry.
Oh, I'm gonna have to do it.
On that point, though, there is a point where, like, the lore Bible for Sea of Thieves, like the timeline and all the events that have led up to what you see in game, all of that lives in a document. All of that's planned out meticulously, and we add to it. It's up to date with all the novels, all the events of the adventures, and the vast majority of it is kind of stories that are precursors to the stories in the game. We have talked about, wouldn't it be great to release this at some point as almost a book or several volumes of books that chart the history of the Sea of Thieves? But some of the stuff is told quite factually, almost like a history book. So probably not the right format. We'd have to go back and make it read more like a story rather than a chronicling of events that have actually happened. But yeah, we've talked about that as well.
Sounds like a job for Chris.
I think Chris is one of the few people I would trust to work on it for sure.
All right.
I think that would sell like hotcakes, I have to say.
I would buy it, yeah.
I would buy too.
I think a lot of people would go, my God, why did they plan out all this stuff?
That's why you have to do volumes, not to spoil it. The ending's here.
That's just the way we do it. Everything's got so much thinking behind it.
On that note, Blubber, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, just one, I guess. One that's can be fun. Because you talked about a lot of ideas that you guys had. Are there some ideas that you used to have that probably won't be in the game anymore, but were great ideas at the time?
That's a great question. Would we never do? The first thing that entered my head, it's quite an old one, but you'll probably remember it, Blubber, which is as you know, we prototyped Sea of Thieves in Unity before we started developing in Unreal. And there's some things in the game now that we never prototyped. And the game, it was Sea of Thieves. The core experience of sailing a ship together was there. But when you're moving things into Unreal, the game for real, that real players will play, everything kind of passes through this filter of, are we sure it's fun? Do we definitely want to do this? Do we have time to do this? What's the core of the game that we're going to build? So that meant a lot that was in the prototype didn't make it into the game. A key feature of the prototype was the death tax. So when you died, you would pay gold.
Yeah.
And what that meant was the type of death would also have a scalable gold amount. So built into the core loop of Sea of Thieves was a sink for all the gold that you earn. And you'd feel wonderful when you didn't die and you were able to keep that streak going because you weren't paying gold to return back from the ferry. So it was like a little toll for the ferryman. when we were building the ferry, we were like, oh, that's going to take X development time. No, let's not do that because players might not like that. So let's not do it. And it's okay because the game's going to evolve over time. We'll add that later. Bad mistake. Because I think we put that into Insiders and it did not go down well, the death tax. But it's an interesting lesson in terms of when you release something is important. I think even though I still think it was the right mechanic, it's too late now. That ship has literally sailed. We can't do that now because you're impinging on players' lived experience of the game. It would feel too punishing to do it now. We saw it in a limited way, not quite as bad as the death tax, but the barrel UI. The barrel UI we have now is more akin to what we prototyped, but we had to just make it a single interaction to take, just to get the functionality into Unreal really fast. And then retroactively, we added that full barrel UI, so you could select the items. That went down not very well because we're changing muscle memory. So, like, thinking about when you release things in terms of the flow of the game and the muscle memories, we've learned that lesson.
Yep, great answer.
I'm
spent.
I think you've answered all my questions as well, Mike. So we're almost finished, so I'll start winding down if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So, and with that, Mike is unfortunately very busy and doesn't have time to natter with us all day. Season 11 did come out today after all, although I've probably got you out of some tough questions there or a meeting or something. So I'd like to thank Mike for coming on. We both really appreciate it, and taking time out of your very busy day to spend time with us just talking means a lot to us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's like a really condensed version of Sea of Thieves Fest where we just get to chat about the game and answer questions. Like, believe it or not, I do find it very enjoyable as well. So thank you for asking me on.
Brilliant. Don't worry, I'll get some more questions for you for Sea of Thieves Fest.
We'll do a live podcast then.
Oh God,
Can't wait.
We can't do that. We can't do that. We have to cut so much out of it. So yeah, you know where to find both me and Captain Blubber on YouTube, on Twitter or Goodreads if you're Captain Blubber. Mike, do we direct them to you for any more questions? Because it seems like Joe's got you chained to the computer whenever there's an announcement.
He likes to have fun with that. He kind of said, "I'll just send them your way. I'll just say, ask Mike. Might give you more details on that." I do. It's like a little joke that we have, but yeah, always happy to answer questions online.
I don't think Joe won't find it funny when you send him the overtime sheet. So yeah,
do it for the goodness of our hearts.
Exactly. Yes.
Wouldn't do that.
So yeah,
it's true.
I'm sure you guys know where to find Mike. We'll put links in the description for everything you need. And yeah, so with that, thanks for listening. And if you made it to the end, you're more deserving of love, gold, and ancient coins than everyone else.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you for supporting Rare, loving what we do, and thank you for playing Sea of Thieves. Really appreciate it.